Welcome in. Boy, after a couple of days away, you think I'd know the timing of this whole thing. Elijah Campbell over there. I'm Jay Phillips. Yes, my car broke down. It was a good weekend for the Phillipses. Had a college graduate, had family in town from a couple of different places, had a nice little get-together for my daughter and her roommates, and the universe rewards me by having my car break down today. Actually, it was yesterday, but been scrambling around all day trying to get places. You know, you don't really understand how much you need your car until you don't have your car, right? So anyway, there's the start of the show for this afternoon. We got a lot of baseball to get to. Another nice series victory for South Carolina. I know they'd like a couple of things back from Saturday. Pitching's kind of all over the place right now. Yesterday, just one big inning for Missouri. Other than that, they didn't do much. Carolina pitching was excellent on Friday night in a 10-2 win. So the Gamecocks have moved up in the D1 baseball poll. They have fallen a couple of spots in the RPI. That was to be expected because of Missouri's RPI number. But I don't think anything has damaged Carolina's opportunity to be an NCAA tournament host if everything kind of goes according to plan. I think Elijah and I talked a lot about this last week. You know, you needed to go in that stretch of games that included at Florida and then home with Arkansas and Kentucky. If you went 5-4, you could feel good about yourself. You went 5-4. Now in these last 9, if you go 5-4 again, you can feel good about yourself. And so far, South Carolina is on that track. They need to win this series this weekend against Georgia, who's very good. Charlie Condon, one of the best. Not the former Attorney General of South Carolina, by the way, if you're wondering.
Close.
Same name. A little younger.
A smidge.
A little bit. But he's very good. Georgia is a very good baseball team this year. They have an excellent RPI, so South Carolina will receive that computer boost. And for what it's worth to you, Carolina will close out the season in Knoxville, where at least for a week, the Tennessee Volunteers are the number 1 team in the country, according to the guys at D1 Baseball. That surprised me a little bit. Just a little bit. But A&M lost their series to LSU. LSU took 2 of those 3. Kentucky took 2 of 3 from Arkansas.
That was my biggest surprise.
Meanwhile, Tennessee took 2 of 3 from Florida. But it was enough to see Tennessee rise to the number 1 spot in the country. Again, at least in the poll. And then, man, I looked at the comments just a minute ago. I shouldn't have.
That's where the experts are, Jay Phillips. If you really want to get learnt, you go to the comment section. We all know this.
Uncanny. I'm like, y'all are sitting here like bitching about the rankings. All kinds of teams. Oregon State fans, Florida State fans, NC State fans, all this, that, and the other. How can it be? I'm like, y'all realize that what Mark and Kendall and Aaron do has virtually no bearing on what the committee's going to do. Like, it really doesn't.
And none of them are on the committee.
No, they're not. They're really good at what they do, too. I love those guys. So it's not a shot at the people that come up with the rankings. It's the opinion of some people. But there's a committee that's going to decide all these things. And then you can complain to them all you want, I suppose. And people will, I assure you. But anyway, that's
a fact. People complain about rankings. Yes, that is a fact. But that's not even an opinion. It's a fact.
It's kind of it's good for some comic relief to go like, man, these are rankings. Like, this is just an opinion poll. You need to stop. It's not that big a deal. But anyway, Carolina is up, and I believe Clemson's number 2 in that same poll. Eric Bakich, man, he's doing a hell of a job up there. But South Carolina used, as expected, a lot of power. That Ethan Petrie home run yesterday felt like it was in the air for about 10 seconds, man. I don't know how long it was in the air, but it was in the air a long time.
Well, enough for that Missouri center fielder to look up, look back at the wall, look up, look back at the wall, look up, look back at the wall, and then have that realization of, oh, shoot, this is going out, slaps the wall.
Yeah.
Ball goes over.
Yeah.
It was there for a little bit.
It was up there for a long time.
Paid rent in the stratosphere.
And Cole Messina, if you have not yet heard, has been named the Southeastern Conference Player of the Week. We'll give you his numbers coming up in just a little bit. And as always, on Mondays, Coach Mark Kingston will be with us at 3:30. So looking forward to talking with Mark about his ball club. And, listen, you take the good, which is wins, but you must couple them with the bad, and that is a real concern right now for South Carolina starting pitching. The bullpen has been brilliant. But starting pitching is leaving a lot to be desired. And I do want to ask Mark if he and Coach Williams are flirting with the notion of moving some guys back into the starting rotation from the pen, or do you not mess with the guys in the pen, Elijah, and just allow your, Kimball and Eskew and Jones to try to work their way through some of their struggles on the hill right now? That may be your best bet. Like, don't throw those guys into the bullpen, I guess. And that's not a knock on them, because there's a reason why they have been chosen as your starting pitchers. They're scuffling right now. Is there something that Matt can help them tweak? What does he see? Because it seems like it comes in real, like, bursts of just like either wildness, or if not wildness, sort of the opposite of just grooving balls where guys are going to smack them.
Yeah. Or in Dylan's, instance yesterday, it was missing the strike zone. I mean, he went from a Maddox-like 9-pitch first inning to not being able to get one in the zone.
Right.
And against Kentucky, it wasn't like he was striking out, 20 hitters a la Kerry Wood on this day like 26 years ago. But no one was making good contact on him, and he was cruising through that game and looked really good doing it because he was giving them tough pitches to hit, and they were swinging at it. It was a Jekyll and Hyde kind of effect for Dylan in those 2 innings yesterday.
Yeah, but for a while, South Carolina couldn't get out of its own way in terms of some of the things they weren't doing Saturday, mid-afternoon, early evening. Just left a lot of guys on base, which has been a theme for this team. And again, at this point now, you're 32-15. This is who you are. This is the team you're taking into the postseason. A team that's going to score a lot. A team that has done a pretty good job in the last few weeks, since the Arkansas series anyway, of drawing a few more walks, getting on base that way, which is good. But could have some iffy starting pitching issues, but a bullpen that's been good. And the defense really let them down on Saturday. Defense was bad on Saturday. But, again, you won 2 baseball games. I know it's Missouri. People can say what they want. This is a Missouri team, by the way. Elijah and I were talking about this earlier. Missouri, earlier in the season, went to Knoxville. Now, they lost them, but they lost 3-2 games to Tennessee. So, Missouri can pitch, and they have, this is the SEC. They're the worst team in the SEC. I grant you that. But they're still a pretty good baseball team, I mean, there's really no bad, like, just baseball teams in the Southeastern Conference. But you did what you needed to do. You won a road series. You improved your record. And, you got to go win tomorrow night. I think you should, and I think you will. But if you don't, that's going to hurt. Then Georgia comes here with a top 10 RPI, and you go to Tennessee with a top 10 RPI. So those quad 1 games, we talked a lot about it. You'll hit your 30 quad win games. Win 3 of these next 6. Against Georgia and Tennessee, and I think that's fine, by the way. I'm not – listen, I know you want to win. If you're a fan, you want to win every game you play. I get it. But I don't think it's defeatist or, whatever other thing I'm looking for here to say just throw your hands up and go, hey, if you just split, that's if you split against Georgia and Tennessee, I think you'll be looked at as like, that's fine. I really do. You'd love to get to 40 wins, but at 32, I mean, obviously that's not going to happen now. So just – do your part, and you'll be rewarded. I don't see this team getting a top 8 without maybe winning the Southeastern Conference tournament. And maybe you could make a deep run and be rewarded for that, depending on who you beat along the way. But I don't know if this team has the starting pitching to do that, to be honest with you. And again, whether it's been Ray Tanner, Chad Holbrook, or even to some degree Mark Kingston, this is a baseball program that has just not ever really done great things consistently at the Southeastern Conference tournament. They've won it once. When they did, by the way, they did move into the number 2 overall national seed slot back in 2004, where I think they finished 3rd in the College World Series. But does it matter that much? I mean, right now I would say you need to be focused on maintaining your position. because if you do that, you're going to host in the first round, and I think that's a fine achievement for this iteration of Carolina baseball.
I think you're going to have to win at least a couple games there because those are going to be considered quad one games. And if we really want to look at the quad one numbers, the biggest L you took this weekend was not against Missouri on Saturday. It's Vanderbilt getting swept like that and dropping out of the top 25 in the RPI because you lost 3 quad one games over the weekend because they dropped out of the top 25. So instead of having 12 right now, you have 9, right? Like you lost some because the RPI is live. And what, could be a quad one win today might not be a quad one win this time next week. So that was really the most unfortunate hit to your resume is that you could boast that you had, you were top 3 in the country in quad one wins. You're not anymore. So they're still in terms of trying to secure the playing at home and hosting regionals. You still might have a little more work to do to make sure that you're 100% confident that you are. I still think you're in the right spot. The resume's still in the right spot. But Vanderbilt didn't do you any favors over the weekend.
Right.
So that puts you maybe a little more pressure on you, to be able from an outside point of view perspective to be able to secure that spot so you can feel really good about doing it. But it just makes this series this weekend that much bigger.
We'll have some more Carolina baseball for you throughout a large portion of the afternoon. And again, Coach Kingston coming up with us in about, we'll call it 20 minutes or so. I tell you what, let's hit a timeout here. We've got some really good Gamecock basketball news to get to. If you haven't yet heard about this or want some more detail, big pickup for Coach Paris. Whenever you get a conference's player of the year, I think you've done a nice thing for your team. We'll explain all of that and more as the postgame show continues. Love telling you about our buddy Ben Cato and his team at Cato's Power Equipment. Ben and his family have owned Cato since the 1980s. Ben's the 3rd generation owner now, and he really wants you to take advantage of what they can do for you, whether you are the residential homeowner who likes to keep their lawn nice and maintained, or if you're a professional. They have right now on Toro, Aaron's, Gravely zero-turn mowers, incredible financing opportunities, including some 0% plans for up to 48 months. And this is really good for those of you who are professionals who need a lot of equipment, want to keep things upgraded. Maybe you're adding staff and you need more things for them to be able to use. They can make any purchase, big or small, a lot easier on your wallet. They also offer great cash discounts, and they never charge credit card fees. Remember all of those things as you are doing your lawn maintenance this summer. Cato's Power Equipment, catospowerequipment.com. All right, welcome back in. Postgame show rolling on this Monday. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Elijah had a great show on Friday while I was out celebrating daughter number 2's graduation from the University of South Carolina.
Age not ranking.
Age not ranking. Thank you. I got that wrong the other day, not in the sense that you might think, but that I really was more like just pecking order, not ranking.
Yeah, not power ranking.
No.
Yes.
No, they're
the order in which they were born.
All 4 of them are equal on the power ranking line, man. There's a 4-way tie at the top. But I've been to a couple of graduations, right? But it's been a long, long time. And I know that since I'd last been to a South Carolina graduation, they now have the tradition of one of the cheerleading crew that gosh, I have to be careful with this, right? That assists Cocky, if you will, for the kids out there.
Yes.
You little ones.
Yes, that helps. Yeah.
One of Cocky's helpers, like Santa's helpers and such. Again, for the littlest Gamecocks out there, Cocky has assistants. Anyway,
because Cocky is sentient.
One of those helpers every year will wear the shoes that Cocky wears.
That's nice of Cocky to give his shoes out.
Yeah. It's cool. And that person then gets to rile the crowd up for 2001. And now they have added Sandstorm into the mix to send the kid. They call it Sandstorm Send Off. And I got to tell you, it was pretty cool.
Oh, that's neat.
It was pretty cool. It's a long ceremony. Dr. Amarides made a great point. He's like, we're one of the few schools that's this big that still has a ceremony where every graduate is recognized and named. Because Carolina is a big school. And I can only imagine what it's like in the Big Ten, where Carolina would be, a small school.
One of the smaller ones there.
Like, oh, y'all only got 30,000. What's wrong with you? We got 50.
Almost doubled.
Well, my daughter goes to Maryland. They got more than 40. I mean, I know, my oldest, and we went to her. Now, she had a COVID graduation, so it was a little different. But anyway, it was cool. It was cool. So that's 2 down of college, 2 to go.
You're halfway there.
Something like that. Speaking of Colonial Life Arena, which I was speaking of indirectly because that's where the event was held this weekend, Lamont Paris has added a big portal ad in the name of Jamari Thomas. He's a young man from Greensboro. He started his collegiate career at UNC Wilmington.
The Skyhawks.
Yeah,
Seahawks.
Seahawks.
Tennessee Martin's the Skyhawks.
That's right,
Close.
Seahawks. And then was with Norfolk State, where this past season he was the MEAC Player of the Year. He was also named the MEAC Newcomer of the Year. He was also on the all-defensive team for the MEAC this past season. He's a point guard. He's a true one. He averages 16.9 points per game, 3.8 assists, and 2.1 steals per game, which I think is very good to average better than 2 steals per game. And I was giving Elijah the analogy that we use sometimes, depending on the subject, but if you're averaging 2.1 steals per game, how active and effective are you throughout the course of a game when it comes to your defensive prowess? And I would say the answer to that is very. And then in reading the scouting report about him, he's really good at disrupting passing lanes, playing, on-ball defense. And he says of himself, I love playing defense. And defense is such a want. I mean, everybody wants to score. Not everybody wants to defend. It is a want to, and it can be taught, but it's when it can be taught to someone who wants to do it, then you've got an effective defender. So I think this is a really nice pickup. And again, the MEAC Player of the Year. So that's a big deal. Said he wanted to come close to home. He's from Greensboro, went to high school in Burlington as well. They won a state championship in North Carolina while he was a senior at Burlington. But he's got family in Spartanburg and Columbia, he said. And obviously Greensboro's right up the road. So a really good get for South Carolina basketball. Just 1 year left, Elijah, but you hope, like Talon Cooper gave you, it's going to be one really nice year.
You're going to need him to kind of replace exactly what Talon Cooper gave this team, which is, a pace setter at point guard, somebody who's a good facilitator. And this is a guy that had one of the top 130 assist rates in the country, right? Like he's really good at facilitating. He's a really good three-point shooter. He shot 38% on the season. But from the right side of the floor, at like the top of the break, he was over 40%.
Okay.
He's got him a good spot. He's really good on catch and shoots, which is a lot of like what Talon Cooper did in terms of catch and shoots at the end of the shot clock. So many times this year, if a possession broke down and Talon had to hit a big shot at the end of the shot clock, usually it was on either the right or left break of the three-point line, and Talon shot those really, really well off the catch. One of my favorite things about him, too, is that he's almost an 81% free throw shooter, which means that this shooting is pretty sustainable. You see some guys have really good shooting years, and then it kind of fall back to earth the next year. His free throws, his two-pointers, and his three-point shooting percentages have all gone up in each 3 years that he's played college basketball. That's a good sign.
Yeah.
And he gets the free throw line a lot. He was 21st in the country in free throw rate. Out of the top 25 of those players that were tops in the country in free throw rate, Jay, how many would you guess are shorter than 6'4"?
I would say, again, this is one of those questions you asked me where the answer is probably none, but I want to say like 3.
You're close. There's only 4. Only 4 of the top 25 players in free throw rate, or in terms of fouls drawn per 40 minutes, are shorter than 6'4". Jamari Thomas is one of those 4 players. So you got a guy who's really good at drawing fouls, especially at his size, who can get into the lane at will and distribute better than almost anybody at that level. I think you got a really good replacement for Talon Cooper in terms of what you want to do offensively and the things that he does really well. There's a lot of things that he does really well, but those things complement what you have in place already and gives you a definitive starting point guard.
So now South Carolina, with the inclusion of Jamari Thomas into the class, has had a really nice last couple of months between a couple of guys that are just coming out of high school, in Oku Federico and Cam Scott, and Trent Noah. You've added Nick Pringle through the portal, who's from Beaufort County. You've added Jordan Butler, who's from Greenville. Pringle was at Alabama. Butler was at Missouri. And again, Jamari Thomas coming from the MEAC in Norfolk State after a couple of years at UNCW. So this is it's a nice, solid class. Again, I am not going to sit here in May and tell you, I think this has South Carolina poised to finish X in the SEC. They finished 5th last year. If you can maintain that kind of level, to use that term again, maintain, we talked about that with baseball already, I think that would be excellent, because I got to tell you, Nate Oates is losing a couple of dudes here or there, but he is adding. And if Sears hasn't made his mind up yet, has he?
I think he's in the draft right now, but there's a potential for him to back out whenever that deadline comes. So he can still withdraw his name from the draft if he chooses to.
If that kid comes back, and we'll talk about it later, but they added one of the better big men in the Big Ten.
God, yes.
The other day. So there's that. But if they can maintain what they've got, and help me out, big kid, tall kid that's coming back from South Dakota or whatever he's.
Grant Nelson.
Nelson, thank you. He's back. They've got a strong team, and I forget who's way too early, like after some portal additions. Anyway, it may well be that Alabama's the #1 team in the country going into the season.
They had a good recruiting class too.
They are loaded. Yeah.
It's an embarrassment.
It's just weird. I'm like, wait, y'all got 2 sports mixed up? Because, like, Kansas was second. I'm like, yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Yeah, par for the course.
It's like, you got football and basketball. Like, somebody's just messing around with you. Like, nah, Nate Oates. When does Alabama, do they have to build Nate a gym at this point now?
Oh, they have to. They have to.
Or do you just spend a lot on Coleman? I don't know. How old is Coleman?
It's pretty old.
Like in the 60s, right?
I was going to say, like, as long as I've been watching college basketball, Coleman Coliseum is the home of the Tide, It doesn't look new. I've never been, but it does not look new on TV.
It's because it's not. It's
precisely.
Old. Right.
Been there for a bit.
But anyway, Jamari Thomas, and we'll talk more about this a little bit later on too. But you got some of the numbers from Elijah and me there. This is a good get, and they're full. They're done. Now it's time to coach them up.
12 scholarship players.
That's it
On the roster
you
right
got
now.
Everybody. All right, come back on the other side. We'll visit with Mark Kingston. Gamecocks take 2 of 3 at Missouri. Scored a lot of runs over the weekend. Had some great bullpen pitching, some struggles with the starters, and a couple of defensive things. How does Mark put all that together in this final stretch, including the final 3 home games coming up this weekend? We'll talk to the head coach of the Gamecocks when the postgame show continues.
1-0 pitch, driven to center. Lovich goes back. He's at the wall. He looks up. It's gone! And we are tied. Ethan Petrie sends it out of here to center field. Second home run of the inning. This one comes with 2 outs, and the Gamecocks are back in it. We're knotted up at 4.
Derek Scott on the call yesterday afternoon from Como. South Carolina did come all the way back and win comfortably against the Missouri Tigers, 9-4, taking 2 of 3 on the weekend. Go to 32-15 overall, now 13-11 in conference play. Final midweek game tomorrow night up in Rock Hill. Final home series this weekend. And the regular season will conclude next week in Knoxville. We won't get into all those things because our next guest is very superstitious. So we'll talk about what has happened and maybe a little insight on tomorrow night. He is Mark Kingston, the head coach of the Gamecocks. Congrats on that one. That Petrie home run yesterday felt like it was in the air for a long time, huh?
Yeah, it was like an old Ray Guy punt for the older portion of your crowd that may remember that reference. It was up there a long time, and luckily it landed on the right side of the fence, and so that was obviously a big part of that ball game, and we really took over the game from there.
All right. I want you to be serious with me. How nervous were you and the staff during that 8th inning weather delay where if it had to be called, it's a tie? Like, how did you know you were going to play again, or was there a big level of concern?
That was a discussion point. There's no question, and it's ironic that you played the Ethan Petrie highlight there, because he's one of the guys sitting near me in the dugout, and he was saying, "Coach, if this storm doesn't go away, we're going to revert back because we had scored and taken the lead at that point, but we're going to revert back, and this is going to be a tie game." And that's the last thing any of us wanted. Is, we were playing great and we had taken over, and so it would have really been unfortunate if the storms didn't go away and we would have had to come out of there with a tie. So luckily they didn't, but that was definitely something that was on our minds as well as everything else.
Certainly feels like a close call. And another close call that you had over the weekend, too, was also just so happened to be the number 2 play on SportsCenter's top 10, and that was Austin Brindling robbing Missouri of a grand slam. And I think Garrett Gainey's face said it all after the catch right there. I think I had a very similar look on my face when I saw the play. But looking back on it now and seeing the weekend that, even if Austin didn't have the best week, at the plate, he certainly made a series-defining play out there in the field.
Yeah, and it's great that it was on ESPN because that's great promotion for him and the program. So it's always great to see that, and when you make the mothership's highlights, so that's always good. But he's been a really nice spark for us, and that play he made, that's, you look back now after the game's over, and that's a game changer. The score would have been 7-1 at that point, and I don't know if we would have kept Gainey in the game as long as we did had he given up a grand slam there. But Austin made the play, saved 3 runs, kept the game at 4-1, and then after that, Gainey was dominant. And so it really was a game-changing play and a series-changing play. So Austin's been a great spark for us, and I'm really happy for him.
Talking to Mark Kingston, Gamecocks taking 2 of 3 at Missouri. Friday night, you had good pitching. Saturday, not as much, and some defense that didn't help either. Yesterday, just the one bad inning for Dylan. And I know you were asking postgame, Coach, about your rotation. I'm not going to sit here and ask you, have you and Matt made any decisions on that? But I said earlier, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, it feels like sometimes these things just pop up in quick flashes for your starting pitchers relative to them just not being consistently ineffective.
Well, in Dylan's defense, Dylan was dealing with a little bit of arm discomfort yesterday. So I think we need to make sure we keep that in context. That was not just a performance where Dylan just didn't get the job done. He was dealing with a little bit of a sore arm yesterday, and that's what I attribute the outing to. I'd say the previous month, Dylan Esky was, if not one of our best pitchers. He shut out Kentucky last week. So I think we need to keep that under consideration, and I'm sure the public wasn't even aware of that until just now. I think he's going to be fine for the weekend, but it's something we're evaluating. And, but the bigger picture is, we've got guys that have had some really high moments and then some not so high moments. And that's the challenge throughout a long baseball season, is to try to make the best decisions on who is trending in the right direction, whose role is best for them. Obviously, Ty Good has been one of our best pitchers as well, if not our best pitcher. And statistics tell us that he's really, really good coming out of the bullpen. Now, what we've done is basically made him a secondary starting pitcher where somebody opens the game and goes as far as they can. But then once Ty comes in, we know he's going to give us starting pitcher length. Because the stats say coming out of the bullpen, he's just been dominant. And, we have different theories for why that is. My theory is that he's such a unique pitcher that if you have a week to prepare for him on a Friday, then hitters are going to be much more ready for all that he does. But when he comes in out of the bullpen, if you've already prepared for Roman Kimball or whoever opened that game, and now here comes Ty, that's a really tough challenge for hitters. So, we're continuing to evaluate everything, where we need to pitch guys, when we need to pitch guys, how much we need to pitch guys, because some years you have dominant starters. You have a Clark Schmidt, you have a Michael Roth, you know what you're getting. Other years you have guys that are a little bit more challenged where you've got to fit the pieces together. And I would say this year is one of those years. We've just got to continue to figure out the best way to piece things together, and we will continue to evaluate.
And Coach Cole Messina named SEC Player of the Week for obviously the monster performance he had. 9 for 14, 7 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, home runs galore, a couple stolen bases, and 10 RBI. What does he do for your team whenever he's clicking like that? What does it do for that lineup? Because it produced some really good results this weekend.
Well, if you want to sum it up, when him and Ethan Petrie are really scoring runs and driving in runs and taking great at bats, we basically win. I mean, it's that simple. And because everybody else then can complement them and help do things around them. When they are going well, like they are, we win, period. And because everything else is good enough around them. And then when they get in a little bit of a funk, then, that's when we struggle a little bit to score as many runs as we currently are. But Cole's locked in, Ethan's locked in, and my hope is that they're getting locked in at just the right time. Obviously, as a team, you want to finish strongest at the end of the year, and I think we're trending that way. Our offense as a whole now has been really, really good for about the last 2 weeks, I'd say, and we're averaging, I think, 10, 11 runs a game. So hopefully we're trending at the right time, and when all is said and done, we want to put it together when it matters most.
You got a nice stretch run here with some really good baseball teams. Tennessee's been elevated number one again. I'm not going to take you down and say, hey, scout the Vols for us, Mark. I'm not going to do that to you. But one of the things that Elijah and I opened the show with is maintaining your position right now in order to be a host. And clearly all of you guys have seen that you're projected to host by, multiple expert opinions. So there's that. I know you've told us before, you just got to go win the next one, but how much of a part of the conversation does something like that become for these guys in terms of focusing on the goal or the old cliche of eyes on the prize, or do they do a nice job of not really talking about what that looks like in terms of the opportunity to host at Founders in the tournament?
Well, one of the funniest moments I've had this year, and I shared it with my wife. We were watching one of the post-game press conferences with Ethan Petrie, and the question was asked about Quad 1 wins and how important they are. And Ethan calmly answered the question and then finished with, but I don't really know what Quad 1 means. So I think that kind of tells you how the players look at everything. The players go out to have a next great at bat and have a next great inning. And getting to host is a byproduct of playing games well and winning enough games. So you can't really say, well, if we do this, we'll host. So let's just snap our fingers. That's just not how it works. You've got to go. We've got to try to win the next game. And how do we win the next game? We've got to decide who to pitch and who to play. And is it going to be a game where we steal bases, or are we going to rely on power? Like, those are the decisions and the conversations we have to have, because our job is to win the next game. And if you do that enough, if you stack enough of those, then getting the host happens as a result. And so the hosting stuff, all that's great conversation on the radio, but for a baseball team, we just have to try to make sure we're prepared to win the next game.
Coach, before I get you out of here, Will Tippett update. I know you had a couple of defensive issues on Saturday because of the shuffle. You've told us all, look, we're going to sacrifice some defense for better offense, but I'm sure you'd like to have Will back as your shortstop because of his defense. What's the latest on him?
He's getting close. He's getting close, and when he's 100%, then obviously we will have some decisions to make on what we do, because if he goes in, then obviously somebody has to come out. We're not allowed to play 10 players. So if he does go in, then we'll have to take somebody out. And the challenge there is that the 9 players that have been playing right now have created a pretty darn good chemistry in terms of scoring runs. And so we'll have to weigh the pros and the cons and the positives and the negatives of what we think. And it may be with a certain guy on the mound who may get a lot of ground balls. That's the game we decide to play our best infield defense. Again, there's a million factors that go into every decision we make. So we'll do our due diligence and try to do what we think is best to win a game on any given day. But he is getting close to being ready to play. And so obviously that just further strengthens the kind of team we can be.
And real quick, tomorrow night's starting pitcher will be
one of the Gamecocks. I'll go ahead, and I don't think I've ever told you who the starting pitcher is going to be for the midweek game, but I'll break that precedent just for you today, Jay. We're going to go with pitcher, and it'll probably be a game where we go Johnny Holstaff, but Tyler Pitzer will be the first one to pitch tomorrow night.
All right, good stuff. I think you told us Copper was going to.
How
do
about
it a
that?
couple
You
of
happy?
times.
That
But I am. No, I appreciate that. I do. Yeah, that's
finally broke me.
Thank you, sir. Good stuff. Good luck this week. We appreciate you. We'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you.
You bet. Postgame show rolling on. Welcome back into the Postgame Show on this Monday afternoon. Jay and Elijah with you. Hope all of you enjoyed Star Wars Day on Saturday, Cinco de Mayo yesterday. If you went to enjoy some Mexican cuisine, I know my daughter and some of her friends went and said that their favorite, free plug, Casa Linda on Beltline was packed.
Very nice.
I do like Casa Linda. It's good. Fajita Hawaiiana, highly recommended. I didn't do that last night, though. This old man was tired after the weekend that I had. I did very
no
little.
Casa Linda Ritas for you, buddy.
No, I
None.
couldn't, because that just, you might not have seen me today, dude, if I didn't take a day yesterday. At least, well, it's not true. I actually worked a lot around the house to clean up after all the goings on. And do we have anything today? What's today? There's always something today. I don't know what today is.
On May 6th?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, it's like National, chocolate iced donut day or something. There's always a day.
Any day is a holiday if you make it one.
Yeah.
It's a mindset.
I didn't do anything Star Wars wise on Saturday, though. Sometimes I might wear like a Star Wars shirt, like Here to Work or something like that, or mention more Star Wars things. But just didn't get a chance. Did you celebrate May the 4th? Are you a Star Wars fan?
I love Star Wars.
Okay,
Yeah.
sure.
Absolutely love Star Wars. So I didn't watch any Star Wars, but I did end up, because the plan was to watch some.
But I did
playoff
kill
basketball.
a man with my lightsaber.
Yeah, so I do that anyway. But I was actually going to stay home, watch some basketball, hockey, some baseball. Get my sports watching in, and end up getting a terrible migraine. Instead, did something I can do without watching a screen, and that's catch up on the Kendrick Lamar and Drake beef. That's all the kids are talking about. So I had to catch up.
I have a serious question. Do I know a Kendrick Lamar song? I think I could recognize a couple of Drake's bigger hits.
Were you alive in 2013?
I was.
Yeah, you can. You'll probably might recognize one or two.
I was. Let's see, 2013. Carry the. Yes. Okay. I was.
Yeah.
I was.
Then you might know a couple.
All right, but I wouldn't know names.
But you wouldn't know the names of them. No. But you would know them if you
is
heard
Kendrick Lamar still active in the music business?
He is now.
Okay.
He certainly is now.
And
he's never been more active.
Yeah. What are we doing with this? Why is this a thing?
Oh, because I got sidetracked.
No, not you and me.
Oh, why is it a thing?
Why are we the collective, countries? I guess
Canada's involved.
Yeah.
This technically is an international incident.
Right. So what? I want to tell you that I care, but I'm really going to tell you that I don't.
Well, I know you don't, because I know you probably couldn't point out either men in a lineup.
Oh no, I know who Drake, because Drake is the biggest front runner in the world. That's what I know Drake for.
Right.
Is sitting at courtside cheering for both teams.
Right. Exactly.
I'm like, come on.
And
dude.
a lot of people have that same general annoyance with him. So whenever he gets eviscerated,
that's what I know of Drake.
The way that he has.
Seriously, that's what I know of Drake, is that he'll show up at anybody's arena in their colors. He would come to Carolina Clemson and he'd come here in a Carolina jersey, and then the next night he'd go and have on something Clemson or anything of that ilk.
Absolute front runner.
All across, probably more NBA type or NHL type, but
to answer your question of why people care.
Yeah, who did what to whom?
See, that goes back, apparently, it goes way back. Apparently, these men have never liked each other. And then something has kick-started it where somebody made, I think it was Drake started it, and then there was a rebuttal, and then a rebuttal, and then two rebuttals, and then another rebuttal.
And this is being done on Twitter, I suppose?
They're releasing the music, on YouTube, and then it's being tweeted out, and then it's way too much for people to explain in a radio segment. I highly advise just looking at there's somebody on YouTube that has fused all of them together in order, in chronological order.
Okay. You know what I'm not going to be doing?
It's fascinating.
You know what I'm not going to be doing?
That.
Yeah.
See, I got caught in the rabbit hole. I got invested. I didn't plan on getting invested.
Well, I think
I got invested.
Florio knew even less than I did. I was watching a little Florio show this morning, he and Chris Sims, and he kept calling him Lamar Kendrick. And I was like, good. At least I know the name. I just don't know. But you're right. If Kendrick
all
Lamar,
the people on the planet, I would not expect Mike Florio to be invested.
If Kendrick Lamar walked into this room,
you'd have no clue.
I would not. Again, if Drake did, I do know who Drake is.
Right.
But if Kendrick Lamar walked into this room, I could not tell you. I'd be like, hello, how are you?
I would actually be really impressed if you did.
I would
have been stunned. I was stunned that Terry Ford knew enough about it today, and we discussed it in our meeting this morning. It also helps that he has a 17-year-old son that he talks to about it.
Yeah.
They kind of gave him the lowdown.
Ford was probably cheating. He just went onto some website and looked. He just wanted to act all hip for the kids. I'm just going to
He Googled it in time. He saw that it was trending.
I'm just going to be honest with y'all. I couldn't care less. I don't know. Hour 2 coming up. Hour number 2 of the Postgame Show coming at you on this Monday, along with Elijah Campbell. I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. Hope you all had a great weekend. Thanks again to Coach Kingston for joining us in the last half hour. We will, as we say in the industry, re-rack a little bit of that for you coming up in the 5 o'clock hour. If you missed what Mark had to say about the Gamecock baseball team, he did tell us that Tyler Pitzer will start tomorrow night up in Rock Hill against Winthrop.
He didn't say pinky promise, so I don't know how strong the word is, but I'm taking him for it.
And then he said, I looked on the roster, he said Johnny Holstaff would be in use, and I didn't see him on the roster.
Weird. Johnny Holstaff slated to pitch, and almost every weekend on Sunday, TBA is supposed to be on the mound. And
Sure.
I haven't seen TBA take one mound visit this year.
No.
Not one. I've been looking for him. I have not seen a single player with TBA on the back of the jersey.
There's been a lot of that, though. We'll say that much, for real.
I mean,
there's a lot of teams that are like, I don't know.
hey, look, I've never seen a player supposed to play for so many teams and then at the last second say he's not playing since Kawhi Leonard.
Yeah.
This is impressive.
Gamecocks took 2 of 3 at Missouri. We also had a story earlier, if you missed it, about Lamont Paris adding Jamari Thomas to the Gamecock men's basketball team. He is a point guard from Greensboro, played at both UNCW and Norfolk State. Last year at Norfolk, he was the MEAC Player of the Year. So a very nice pickup for South Carolina men's basketball. He's a true one. Averages about 17 points, 4 assists, and 2 steals per game. He's a good basketball player.
Yeah, that's a lot.
He's 6 feet tall and says of himself that he loves to play defense. So you got to like that.
It's the type of player you want.
Yeah, got to like that. So the roster is full, and South Carolina now goes into an interesting offseason. It'll be different expectation-wise. Going to go out on a limb and tell you South Carolina will not be picked to finish last in the Southeastern Conference. But I will also tell you, I doubt very seriously South Carolina in a new 16-school league. I'll be curious to see if South Carolina is picked in the top half.
My hypothesis is they probably won't.
I would think they might be picked more like 9, 10, 11.
Yeah, that's a fair range.
You know? And that's not knocking them.
Mm-mm.
It's just, I mean, with Cal moving to Arkansas, with Texas coming in, Tennessee's going to be strong. Kentucky's Kentucky. Florida got better. Georgia got better.
Missouri actually probably won the transfer portal in terms of the wins they added in conference because obviously any is more than 0.
Well, they got a kid from Duke.
Yeah, got to get Mark Mitchell from Duke and Josh Perkins from Iowa. Or Tony Perkins, not Josh Perkins. Tony Perkins from Iowa.
Tony Perkins from Psycho. Right?
Sure.
Isn't that Tony Perkins? Anthony Perkins? Isn't he Norman Bates?
Is he?
Am I right about that?
I want to double check that because I'm not 100% sure. I'm trying to think of the image of him in my mind.
I mean, I'm punching up. I'm trying to think of who that. It's not the same guy, but same name. It is Anthony Perkins, right?
Yeah, you are correct.
Okay, good. Whew. All right, for a second there, I got.
Well done.
I feel bad for him, man. That dude could never be anybody ever again. He was in an Agatha Christie movie, and even in that movie, I was like, man, he's going to kill somebody.
Imagine being an actor, working your entire life to act, and you're only going to be typecasted as the creepy killer.
And then, they made like 2 other Psycho movies, like in the 80s. I was like, well, at least he got paid to do that again. So there you go. A couple of news things to get to. This came out. I was not here Friday. Elijah was, but this came out after we left the local airwaves on Friday. But a judge in Pickens County has ordered the ACC to turn over their confidential documents that deal with their ESPN agreements to Clemson. But it is what's called an interim confidentiality order. It gives the conference 7 days to produce the documents, but it also provides some level, again, of confidentiality. Let me read verbatim here from the AP report. The order bars Clemson from complying with any Freedom of Information Act requests unless the ACC gives written permission or the school is forced to do so by another court with, quote, competent jurisdiction. One of the big beefs here from the ACC's point of view, and really from Disney's point of view, is that there are things in the agreement that they do not want to be made public. They feel that some of this is proprietary information or just could, give their competitors some insight into how they reach deals, what kind of, intricate, thing. I'm not, y'all get it. I mean, Disney feels like this needs to be confidential. Florida State, and now the state of Florida, and again, we kind of joked about that last week, Elijah. There's two different things here. Florida State University wants these things to be made public because they say it's a state law, and now the state of Florida, on behalf of Florida State, is also suing the Atlantic Coast Conference for the same reason. Like, hey, we told y'all to give us this. And so now, here's the thing. Like, I don't know what the member schools don't have. How much, because, again, a conference is its member schools. There really isn't supposed to be anything, from what I understand, that a conference can do that withholds information from a member of its conference. So Clemson has access to, like, the grant of rights and to these other things. And I'm not, like, faulting Clemson or Florida State for what they're asking for, but don't they have it?
You're saying they're asking for something they should already have.
Yeah.
But they're probably wanting it just to be public, because this is more so than anything probably just a court of public opinion thing. If they can drum up enough support for their side, it can cause pressure one way or another. That has to be it, because they absolutely have access to this.
Clemson claims that the now $140 million exit fee is, quote, unconscionably high and unenforceable. The school says the grant of rights, now this is Clemson's opinion, that the grant of rights only applies if Clemson is part of the conference, and that if a school exits the league, it retains control of the media rights to its home sporting events. But there was a clause in the grant of rights agreement that was leaked out that basically contradicts what it is that Clemson and Florida State are saying. And again, at this point, my bigger questions are, what is the legal activity behind closed doors on campuses in Coral Gables, and Chapel Hill, and Charlottesville? Because those are the next three big kind of national prizes. Again, with all due respect to the other members, and Duke certainly, I think, and what's going on there. I don't know how this ends. And again, the South Carolina court is offering Disney a level of protection that I imagine it asked for, at least the conference has asked for on behalf of Disney, in terms of some of the things that they want made public otherwise. So Clemson says that they are looking, well, let me put it this way. The report says Clemson's complaint released by the court asked the ACC for unspecified punitive damages for the league's, quote, willful and malicious conduct for its assertion that it should receive TV revenue from Tigers games even if they were part of another conference. Again, all I'm going to say on this is that all these schools signed this. Therefore, they know what's up. Why not challenge it then? And in the case of Florida State, who apparently did vote against some of this back in the day, well, challenge it right away if you don't like it. And again, I realize that maybe the landscape changed more quickly than they had believed it would. Nevertheless, here we are. So the ACC has 7 days. I assume that's 7 business days, so maybe one day next week they'll have to do this. We're also getting closer to a deadline for Florida State and the ACC, in that case in Florida. Florida State has to amend their complaint, and then the ACC gets to respond. So this thing is moving, maybe not quickly, but there is, some level of at least movement. I don't know if movement and progress, if I necessarily call those things synonymous at this point in time, but we'll see. But Clemson, for now at least, I guess gets a tiny little victory in what they're trying to do. And again, we come back around to it. Who's going where? And what do these schools know that some people don't. I want to read y'all something that I got from a guy on Twitter. Let me get back to this. Richard hit me. And this I thought was interesting. He says, I've used this analogy before, but imagine an athletic conference is an outlet mall. It doesn't need a Longhorn, and he puts FSU, if it already has an Outback, UF. They'd rather get a Cheesecake Factory, North Carolina. It's interesting. I thought that was a pretty good analogy, to be honest with you. And I think he's kind of right. And that's one of the things that we've talked about. The ACC and the SEC networks, both of them are on everywhere in Florida and in South Carolina. So it doesn't help Disney in terms of growth potential to add Clemson and Florida State. You've already got those things. Now, again, does it help the national branding? There's an argument to be made for that. But in the shorter term, is it better to attempt to add new markets? And there's a lot of media, like television experts, not so much sports guys, but, the media business types who say, yes, that is the better solution for the next decade or so, is that you go into new markets and attempt to do that. And again, do we even know that anybody wants to expand? Some people just assume, oh, well, yeah, the SEC and the Big Ten will keep growing. It's just a matter of when. And maybe that's true. But neither one of them has begun play in their new, their new look form. The Southeastern Conference may want to see what 16 schools feels like for a couple of years. Big Ten has, 18 now. May want to see what that feels like. It gets unwieldy. And all this talk of wanting to see everybody on a regular basis goes out the window if you just keep on growing. So I'll be curious to see how that all works out. But anyway, so that happened for you late Friday. We'll keep an eye on what's going on up in Pickens County. And again, ultimately, do these cases all come together in something federal? That is certainly a distinct possibility. 803-404-6100 if you want to weigh in on it. Come back on the other side of the break. New information coming out about the House versus NCAA case that could lead to massive change in college athletics. There's a settlement that is being discussed. The number now is much higher than originally discussed, and I've got an addendum to that through a group that is going to be, I think, shepherding a lot of athletes through this. I'll give you all the details on how we're getting closer, I think, to something national when the postgame show continues. Welcome back into the Postgame Show on this Monday. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Got a couple of phone calls or during the break that I want to share what Elijah was telling me. And I read this earlier, about 10 minutes ago, from Richard on Twitter. Imagine an athletic conference is an outlet mall. It doesn't need a Longhorn, Florida State, if it already has an Outback, Florida. They'd rather get a Cheesecake Factory, North Carolina. And Elijah's over there nodding and smiling.
Oh, yes.
You like that? I thought Richard did well with that.
That's good. Well, that's probably one of the easiest ways to describe it, right? Because people might be confused, I guess, talking about the imperialism that is television contracts in college football, where people might think it's the brands that matter because that's going to attract more eyeballs. But no, it's, where your network is and where it's most commonly played, because there is a school in a certain state and they're in that conference, South Carolina, the SEC network, and the ACC, which has the ACC network and Clemson in that same state. They're owned by the same company, ESPN, Mickey Mouse, Disney. The money makers here aren't making any more if Clemson goes into South Carolina. It makes zero difference. Right. If anything, it just makes things more complicated. And for those conferences, it is less money that they get, and they have to divvy out more chunks of that pie to different schools. So what you're taking home is going to be smaller because you got to keep sharing everything with everybody else in that conference. That's why the Big Ten is going to run into some trouble eventually. Yeah. It may not be now, but down the line, they're going to have to share more because they have 18 teams in that league.
I agree. And I know some may be saying, wait, guys. I just heard your analogy there. Then why is Texas in the Southeastern Conference? And that's a fair question.
It is.
But here's why. Because it's the University of Texas.
It's a package deal with Oklahoma.
It's the second largest athletics department in the country behind Ohio State. It is. Yeah, I don't. It is to
you
some
weren't
degree.
Just bringing Oklahoma,
right?
You need the numbers to work, and to get the numbers to work, you needed Texas.
But you're. I mean, it's Texas, and with all due respect, Florida State. I know you're probably better at football, to be honest with you. Okay, you really probably are historically. And I'm talking at least the last 40 years. FSU has 3 titles to Texas's 1. I guess even going all the way back to Texas's last one before Mac was in the early 70s. Mm-hmm. But it's Texas, and that's all I can say. I just stop right there. That's why there are exceptions to some of these rules. So, we had, I guess you had a caller off air say something about a super league, and that only schools that have won titles since
1980 was his line of demarcation there. Dave called in and said that there is a super league, he said in the making, but this is, there's really nothing in the making right now, but his suggestion was having a super conference of only teams that have won championships since 1980, because that is only about 28 different teams that have won them, and having them play amongst each other.
Well, tell Oregon they're not getting into that.
Yeah.
That won't fly.
He did say excludes Colorado because of cheating.
What's his name? Did it called?
Dave,
you don't want to go down that rabbit hole, bud.
Then we might not have anybody that's allowed to play. If we wanted to honestly investigate, we might not have anybody
don't
in said league.
Don't do that. Don't do that. That'll be bad for you. At that point, Clemson couldn't get in. I mean, Clemson 1981 got popped.
Yeah.
They still claim it,
As you should claim every national championship you win.
Didn't Oklahoma 85
They got in some trouble.
Get popped?
Yep. They got in some trouble.
Yeah. We can't, let's not use
a lot of Miami teams got in trouble.
Yeah, let's not use that one. Look, I don't think listen, the Super League thing has been discussed. On that note, real quick here, I don't think the Super League's going to happen. I think the conference, the conference familiarity and tradition just means too much.
Well, it's the fabric of the entire sport.
Yeah, I mean, whether it's the slogan around here, if it just means more, or Big Ten with their noon kickoffs and things like that. I mean, these are things that are generational. Again, traditional. It's part of the fabric that makes college football a little bit different. I mean, hell, quite honestly, I wish television had less control over some kickoff times and things like that. Like, you'll still get some good games. I wish schools could revert back to what it, more of what it used to be. It's like you either played at noon or 7, or something like that, right?
Right.
Here's Ross Dellinger from Yahoo Sports on, this potential new development about how much you can afford to pay your student athletes. How many schools could really do it? Here's what Ross had to say.
Now, how many places can hit the cap? I was talking to a coach last night here in Phoenix. I had a number in my head of how many programs could afford to pay, upwards of $20-25 million. The number I had in my head was vastly different than the one that he said.
What was yours?
Mine was 15 to 20 schools.
15 to 20. Okay.
Could
Pat and I can play like that Price is Right game. High or low?
And his was nowhere
higher.
Nowhere really near my number.
I say
you say
much
higher. Okay.
I'd say double. I'd say 30 to 40.
Yeah, easy. They'll
there
find
you go.
money.
It's exactly what it was. It was 35 to 40. Yeah.
And
I think
10
he was
more
thinking.
will find the way.
Yeah. I think y'all are right. When I think about it, because of the recruiting and the highly competitive nature of all that, as one AD here in Phoenix said to me, we can find the money. We can find the money some way.
Yeah, I think it's more like 40 to 50 that would find the money.
Oh, I think we have more than that.
Yeah, you might. And again, I think there might be some schools like at that point you're going to have your Memphis and Tulsa fan bases rise up and say we've got the cash.
Mm-hmm.
And
Memphis has got like $25 million from FedEx.
Yeah, Fred Smith just gave them a lot of money, and that's a big city. They do like the Memphis Tigers over there. Yes, they have an NBA team, but Memphis sports, Memphis Tiger sports is very much a part of the fabric of that community as well. To go back to that kind of feeling, I just don't know which of these big conferences Memphis is going to get into. Big 12, I guess, because I just don't think that the SEC is looking for a school like Memphis. I would be curious to see who Tulsa might be able to work with. I don't. Again, it wouldn't be the SEC.
I mean,
or the Big 10.
No.
So they'd have to be the Big 12 as well, probably.
Or, with 50, 60 schools, you're able to get 65, which I think might be more along the ballpark because, look, even if a school's on the fringe of being able to afford it, there are going to be some administrators that are going to be pressured to not take as much money as they do in every year so they can allow this, right? We're going to see some rebudgeting of a lot of not just athletic departments, but schools, because schools know exactly that if we were to get into a football bowl subdivision, a redoing of the FBS, and it's only those who could afford to pay a certain amount for all of your student athletes across the board, the amount of having to pony up and be able to buy into that is worth more than missing out on it and missing out on the money that they are going to be getting. There are enough people that know how to work spreadsheets and know how to project to say, hey, we need to rebudget some things so we can get into this. We need to be better with our money so we can get into this, because there's about to be more money invested in college sports here in the next few years than there will have ever been. We're already at a point. There's more money in this sport invested than there has ever been in its existence, and it's only going to get greater with the TV deals that are kicking in, and schools do not want to get left out. That's why you see so many schools agree to the stupid rule of not being postseason eligible for like the first, 2 or 3 years that they're in existence in the FBS, because they're willing to take that L for a few years just to get FBS money. You are going to see some incredible sacrificing. The schools that cried broke during this are going to find the money that they can to just get into it because they want to be in that bigger picture. Some schools where you're like, wow, I didn't know you had it like that. They've always had it like that. But they've had to rework some things and be able to get the money right to where they can be able to buy into this because they don't want to be left out. The FOMO is going to be very real.
And if you're wondering, and there's the difference is only a few million between what Clemson and South Carolina generate in revenues every year, but ballpark discussion percentage for each athletic department to hit that 20 million mark would be about 15% of what they currently generate. Again, now South Carolina's numbers are going to be increasing potentially above Clemson's, and I know that's, again, why it's so problematic for Clemson and FSU, and is about to be that's why I mentioned earlier, this is also problematic for the University of North Carolina. They just haven't gone to court yet.
They haven't complained about it the same way.
But the University of North Carolina does care mightily about what's going to happen, I assure you. So does Miami. So do a lot of those schools. And so, FSU and Clemson right now may be doing the early heavy lifting, but others in the ACC are taking notes. I promise you that. All right, we'll come back. I'll give you some more details, staying with this subject of what the settlement could look like to pay athletes who have sued, saying that they were basically barred from getting NIL money, what that number could look like, and how those kids moving forward could be helped. You're listening to the Postgame Show. Across South Carolina's Midlands, AAA Heating and Air is your year-round ally against the changing weather, and now that weather is changing to hot. It might be time for you to get a brand new system, and you can start with a free replacement estimate. Then you can set the tone for quality and affordability with AAA Heating and Air. Log on to callAAAtoday.com. That's callAAAtoday.com. You give them a little bit of information, and next thing you know, the computer spits out exactly what you're looking for, which is how much it's going to cost you. But then you will say, okay, well, can I afford that? Yeah, here's why. Guaranteed financing at AAA Heating and Air. And 12 months, no payments, no interest. Plus, the 15-year parts and labor guarantee speaks volumes of the trust in their service and their products. Roy and Dana Finley have great people working for them. They install great equipment. They just want to keep you nice and comfortable. They've done it for me. Let them do it for you. 803-677-1500. Call AAAtoday.com. That's AAA Heating and Air.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell. The few accidents to report to you that are causing some issues on the roadways this afternoon. We'll start with one on I-20 eastbound between US 601 exit 92 and US 521 near exit 98. There's road construction that has the left lane completely closed. That's expected to clear at about 5 p.m. tonight. In Richland County here, an accident's been reported on Clemson Road at Sparkleberry Lane. That's causing some mild traffic backup, as well as one on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Sparkleberry Lane. We also have one on I-77 southbound that's over at Fort Jackson Boulevard, exit 10. And in Lexington County, we have a few, one on Old Barnwell Road near South Carolina 6 and South Lake Drive, as well as two more on I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road near exit 3 and Gator Road at Church Street.
So we're talking the future of the business of college athletics and how it could, alter what a lot of athletic departments are able to do. Again, I found it interesting, by the way, that Ross Dellinger, I'm not picking on him, and I've actually never met Ross. I've met a lot of those national guys, but that he would say only 15 to 20 athletic departments, in his opinion, or at least what he thought, would be able to afford $20 million a year to set aside to use as athlete compensation. I think the number is much higher than that. Again, anybody that's, look, right now you've got, 34 members of the SEC and Big Ten alone, at least in the new school year. They can all afford it, right?
For sure.
They can all afford it. And so can most of the Big 12.
Well, didn't, Charlie Baker's in his proposal, he was saying, they projected about 70 schools being able to give at least every student athlete $30,000.
Yeah.
That sounds about right. I trust their numbers, and I think it's a pretty honest assessment, and that's a very fair ask.
So, a couple of things here. First off, there's, again, a lot of you have heard about this. There's a case that is called House versus NCAA. It is looking to get back pay for athletes who say they were denied the opportunity to capitalize on their name, image, and likeness a few years back. And it goes back over, I forget exactly when this is, right around the Ed O'Bannon time. So let's say 15 years. And the settlement number, well, let's put it this way. They're suing for $1 billion, but if the plaintiffs were to win, especially in the court where it is, then they'd get triple that plus fees, and the number would look more like $4 billion that the NCAA member institutions would have to pay. Now, the latest on this is that a settlement number is probably somewhere in the $2.7 billion range, would be paid out over a 10-year period, and that the NCAA would pay it. So this would be funds that would otherwise be distributed to member institutions and instead would be withheld from that kind of distribution and would be paid to this class action. Again, this is not done yet. These are the latest kind of whispers that are coming out of some of these settlement talks. They also very much want this settlement to include what the future landscape looks like. And some, from what we understand, some academic leaders especially believe there are not enough safeguards for their schools, so they may not want to settle. And I get that. Now, here's something different. There's a group, if I can get my computer to cooperate here, there's a group called make sure I get them right here, the College Football Players Association. And I would imagine that there would be something like this for every athlete soon enough. So this could actually just be like setting the pace. I'm not going to read this release that this group sent out, the College Football Players Association, but they basically say, and by the way, it's interesting because they have a former Clemson football player and a former Duke women's lacrosse player as their two main leaders. So again, that's why I say it might say College Football Players Association, but this is going to just end up being College Players Association or something like that. Anyway, they are talking about working with the NCAA and its member institutions to come up with some form of national collective bargaining that does not have student athletes named as official employees of their schools. In theory, this is probably what is going to be most, well, not likely, I guess, Elijah, but maybe most appealing to schools, because that's the number one thing that I've really heard is that they don't want the student athletes to become part-time or full-time employees. And really, I don't think the kids want that either, because, again, then you can get fired. And you got to remember that. And what kind of contract are you signing at that point in time? So I think employee status really isn't the best way to go. But if you could find some way to make what these folks are proposing work with a form of national collective bargaining with non-employee status, maybe you begin to really get somewhere. Again, in theory, sounds great.
Yeah. Well, and here's the thing, too. I don't know how else you can describe it, right? Because if it took this long to be able to get any type of NIL legislation passed, if schools fought that long for that to even be allowed, at this point, it's to hell with what they want, because it's fighting progress of this entire thing. And sure, like employment status would allow you to be fired, but it also allows you to sign contracts that would allow, or that would, I guess, lay the groundwork for firing, right? You can be fired if you are late to showing up to work. That's pretty normal.
Right.
But if it's, you got hurt in this game and you can't play, we're going to fire you. Because there are schools in every single sport, and I've heard a ton of horror stories from people that are in the business where kids get their scholarships revoked after they get hurt and then are left injured with no way to pay for surgeries and things that are already pretty bad. There are things that are already pretty bad. Scholarships get revoked for some of the dumbest stuff already. So I think we already kind of live in that scenario a little bit, but this would allow at least, an agreement to be made between what you can fire someone over and what you cannot fire someone over, with injuries being part of that. I think that I don't know how else we're going to be able to describe these athletes as employees otherwise.
Yeah, I agree. And look, I know that a lot of schools have put safeguards in now and a lot of things are out there to, as you mentioned, make sure that some of these kids get medical protection, certainly during school, which they do, and then even for, a specified amount of time afterwards. Excuse me. The biggest thing here to me is how many kids want to sign something like this coming out of high school and what that looks like in different states relative to something national. And I still think that the NCAA is really pushing Congress. They say protection. I'm telling you, they want antitrust protection. And I just don't think that's going to happen.
They want protection of their own best interest.
Yeah, and I just don't think that's going to happen. But what this looks like, in 10 years, if you can get it working, I think is good. And I saw somebody ask on Twitter rhetorically, well, gee whiz, with all of this, current ability to move basically at will, why would student athletes coming out of high school or those, because that's what you're going to have to do is you're going to have to sign this thing coming out of high school and say you agree to this. Forget about the transfer. I mean, those that are in the portal at the time, if you're in school, should something like this pass, it's a little bit different. But again, looking far enough down the line to where you wouldn't be in school anymore, why would you want to restrict your movement? Well, I don't know that it's about that as much as, again, like we said, you've got to put parameters in place somewhere along the way. This Wild Wild West kind of thing can't continue. And without beating the dead horse too much more, I continue to say it, as you just pointed out, because the NCAA fought so hard. And again, I don't want to say because the member schools, the schools fought so hard not to change that we got to this point. Again, this is the overcorrection on the highway where you're avoiding the median and you swerve into the ditch. That's what we are. That's where we are right now, in my opinion. This is a massive overcorrection that didn't need to happen. You should have just been stay on cruise control, and gradually gain speed. Anyway, I don't think there might be some that do question that. And there again, that comes back around, and a lot of you know where I'm getting ready to go with this. Those that may be the most high profile would rather go ahead and become professionals. But that currently isn't allowed by the professional leagues. I always want to bring that up just to make sure you're not forced to go to college for 3 years if you're a football player. The problem is you have nowhere to go. That's the problem. But some of those guys, and again, it's not about whether they can or can't hack college. It's that they are gifted and they would rather get started on using their gift.
Or use that opportunity if said opportunity was provided.
And some of them do want to go to college. Yeah, I used the Justin Smoke example at South Carolina with baseball a few years back. Justin could have gone anywhere, and he could have been drafted first round. He wanted to play for the Gamecocks. Yeah. And then again, like Clayton Kershaw was recruited by everybody. I'm sure that the Texas Longhorn baseball program would have loved them some Clayton Kershaw coming out of Dallas. But the Dodgers paid him like $4 million to become a pro. Can't do that in football. Come back on the other side of the break. Elijah's got today's poll question. We'll touch on that for you and more as the postgame show continues. 11 minutes in front of 5 o'clock on this Monday. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay and Elijah with you. Appreciate you being with us. Hadn't talked about the Derby yet, by the way.
I heard a horse won it.
Yep, true story. It was fun, man. It was fun. I was really busy family-wise with the graduation stuff this weekend. I did not get to watch as much sports as I typically do, which is usually a lot because that's what I do. But we did watch the Derby. That was great, man. That was great.
Photo finish?
So one of my daughters, too, they were like, they don't care. Like most people, it's like, oh, sure, the race is not cool. I mean, people will watch the Kentucky Derby because it's a Kentucky Derby, but otherwise, like, nobody's, paying attention to who's doing what. And so when they're parading the horses out there, the 10 minutes building up to the start of the race, right? And you finally learn who all these horses are, and you see all their odds and their colors and everything and the names. And so my oldest daughter was like, looking on there, she's like, all right, I'll pick somebody with a cool name in the middle of the board, like odds-wise. She's like, I like Mystic Dan. And so then she's like only half paying
Good
attention.
choice.
And I was like, hey, your horse won. She goes, really? So she's like, too bad I didn't bet. I was like, yeah, it is too bad. It's only 18-1, man.
You'd have won something.
Yeah.
You won a lot of something.
That's not bad. You plop $100 on that, and you're taking the family out to dinner.
That's a bucket list thing. I'd like to go to the Kentucky Derby. That'd be fun.
I was telling somebody that I think I do, and I think I don't all at the same time.
Gotta go once. I think trying it.
Yeah, I don't know. And do I want to get all? Yeah, I don't know.
I'll wear a floppy hat.
Yeah, I'll wear something. I feel like you dress like those barbershop quartet dudes or something. The thing is, I'm a Southerner. I do have a seersucker suit. I do. I've only worn it like maybe 5 or 6 times because you can't wear a seersucker suit too often. It's like, oh, you're wearing your seersucker suit again, huh? So, you bust it out every now and then. But sure, I guess. And I don't drink bourbon. So what else they got?
Yeah, mint and juleps, right?
Yeah, that's bourbon.
I don't know. That was the main.
There's bourbon in that.
I was going to say, well,
It's
not
Kentucky.
straight bourbon. Yeah.
It's Kentucky. They get babies drink bourbon in Kentucky. It's the law.
It's you actually have to mix it in with milk when they're young.
That's the whole thing, man. Going back to like the Hatfields and the McCoys. They finally settled a feud. Well, we got to drink all this bourbon. Anyway,
Drink it all by ourselves.
Maybe one day, but that's pretty cool. Like for the 150th, that they had a photo finish and record crowd and all that kind of stuff. So that was cool.
Yeah, that was fun.
So congratulations, Mystic Dan, who will probably not win the Preakness.
Statistically speaking.
Yeah, probably not. Poll question for today, sir.
Yes. Well, we discussed a little bit in the first hour, how much you are in tuned to the Kendrick Lamar Drake rap beef that's going on. And this is the widest I've ever sounded. But
negative amounts for me.
Negative amounts for you. I got totally invested. I got suckered in, man. The whole thing. I had time this weekend. And, in honor of that, in honor of some generational level hatred going on this weekend, I was really curious, outside of the obvious, right? And I want to see exactly how obvious it was. Outside of, Dabo Sweeney, which Clemson football figure do you have the biggest beef with? I threw Dabo in here anyway. And the options are Dabo, Rod Gardner, Ben Boulware, as nominated by Preston Thorne. He said Ben Boulware was in all caps. Like he was ready to put Ben Boulware on this list. Or other. And as of right now, 69% of the vote has Dabo as the Clemson football figure they have the biggest beef with. Rod Gardner sitting at 16.5%, 8.7% Ben Boulware, and Dimitri Ravanos comes into the comments here and says Hunter Renfrow with a really funny link to an article he wrote on SB Nation titled, "It is 100% okay to want to punch Hunter Renfrow in the face." Read it, highly recommend it. It was really funny. So those are the ones on the board right now. So Hunter Renfrow gets an honorable mention, along there with Ben Boulware, Rod Gardner, and Dabo Sweeney.
Rod Gardner, like I get it, and that's that for those of you that don't remember, that's the push-off guy. But really, my beef there is with the official that just let it happen right in front of him. That because that was terrible. I'm sorry. And if you're, somebody might say, oh, well, Jay, you went to South Carolina or something like that. Yeah. But come on, man. I mean, when you see that and you're like, wait, they didn't call that? I mean, if you were somebody that was, I don't know, an Oregon State fan, and I just showed this to you, hey. What
do you think of this play right
here? Remember, look at this. This was a push-off penalty. This was, and they're like, and then you're like, nah, I'm just kidding. It wasn't. Like, people go, what? So is it really Rod's fault? I don't know.
Rod's just there.
Yeah.
He was just there. Sometimes that's all it takes, is just being there and being the one in that moment.
And I don't have time for you to tell me now why Coach P doesn't like Ben Boulware. So I'll have to come back around to that one, I suppose, at some point. Headlines of the day, sound from Mark Kingston coming up. Drive around the SEC. Big Gamecock basketball news to tell you about, too. Coming back. We all love, well, I say most anyway. Most of us love the homes we are in. Maybe you don't right now, but you've been there for a while. Well, now this is time for you to listen up, because if you do have some home equity, now's a great time to take advantage of what Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union offers you, a 10-year home equity line of credit. It's not a big home equity loan with a big lump, and maybe you don't need all of that right now. If over a period of time you have kids that are getting a little bit older, maybe they need a playroom or an extra bathroom. You need a room over the garage to have a little respite, whatever it might be. Update that 80s or 90s kitchen into today's more modern look. Palmetto Citizens is ready to help you out. You'll pay lower closing costs and application fees than you do with the big banks, and it's all right here in the Midlands. They've been doing it since the 1930s. My wife and I are customers. We love Palmetto Citizens. We think you will too. Apply online today at palmettocitizens.org and achieve your potential.
From the WIS Traffic Center, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to you that are causing some delays on the roadways this afternoon. We have some road construction on I-20 eastbound between US 601 and exit 92 and US 521 near exit 98. The left lane is completely closed there, but it's expected to clear at 5 p.m. Here in Richland County, an accident on Clemson Road at Sparkleberry Lane is causing some issues, as well as one on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Sparkleberry Lane. We also have one more on I-77 southbound at Fort Jackson Boulevard near exit 10. And in Lexington County, we have one on I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road near exit 63.
It is 5 o'clock news time on this Monday. Welcome back in. It's also the final hour of the Postgame Show. Along with Elijah Campbell, I'm Jay Phillips. Thank you so much for being with us. We start with South Carolina baseball, where the Gamecocks yesterday closed out the series victory against the Missouri Tigers. Gamecocks trailed 4-1 going into the seventh inning, but they got 3 in the seventh, 3 in the eighth, 2 in the ninth for a 9-4 victory that improves Carolina's overall record to 32-15. They are now 13-11 in Southeastern Conference play. Cole Messina hit a home run in the ninth inning. He, by the way, has been named the Southeastern Conference Player of the Week. More on that for you in just a second. Connor McCreary got the win in relief yesterday. He struck out 4 in 2 2/3. Chris Veach picked up a save. He got a couple of strikeouts in an inning and a third, and Garrett Gainey had 5 strikeouts in 3 2/3. The Gamecock staff allowed just 4 hits in the win. And really, as Coach Kingston told us a little bit earlier, Dylan Eskew was dealing with a little bit of soreness. He had a fine first inning, but then gave up 4 in the second. But that was all that Missouri got for the day. Ethan Petrie hit a mammoth home run to center field to tie the game at 4, and again, Carolina went on. It was a little dicey, too. For those of you who didn't get to listen or watch yesterday, there was a little thunderstorm cell that moved through the Columbia, Missouri area in the 8th inning, and South Carolina in the top of the 8th. The Petrie home run was in the 7th, so they went into the 8th tied at 4. And South Carolina had scored 3 runs in the top of the 8th inning, and there were 2 outs in the inning. And then the rains came with a lightning delay, so it was a minimum 30 minutes. And I think they ended up, it was a little over that, but not by much. But had the game been called at that point, if it had kept on raining, South Carolina actually had 2 outs against Missouri. They did not get the requisite amount of outs to end the inning, and the game would have reverted back to the start of the inning, which would have been 4-4, and the game would have ended in a tie. And that would have been
devastating.
That would have been rough, man, because that's basically a loss at that point, you know. I mean, I get it. And for one thing, ties in baseball, come on. But, and I think Missouri still has school, so even though they're the home team, there are still some rules in place about when you can start the final inning of a game on a Sunday, on a getaway day. And they apply to any game 3. So sometimes these things have happened on a Saturday, which is really terrible. But that's the rules. And I get it. Luckily, didn't happen. Everything's okay. And South Carolina gets the victory. Again, 32-15 overall, 13-11 in conference play. Again, Cole Messina named the Southeastern Conference Player of the Week. He was 9 of 14. This includes the midweek game. 9 of 14, 7 runs scored, hit 2 doubles, a triple, 3 homers, had 2 steals, and 10 runs batted in. He was also walked 3 times. That's a 722 OBP. And then if you want to, and I don't know what his slugging percentage for the week was, but with a triple, 2 doubles, and 3 homers, that's probably an OPS of something like 2,000.
I say we're breaking 2,000 here, which for those who aren't as familiar with OPS, that's good. That's really good.
Yes.
Almost impossible.
If you have an OPS of better than 800, you're doing nicely. There are several Gamecocks, because they score and hit a lot of home runs, that have OPSs right now around 1,000. But again, Cole flirting with probably 2,000 for the week, which, yes, very
stupid numbers.
Very good. On the year, he is hitting .316, 17 doubles, 14 home runs, 49 runs batted in. his first SEC Player of the Week honor and the first for the Gamecocks in more than a year since, at the time, freshman Ethan Petrie got one back in early April of last season.
How about that?
So hadn't been too many of them. We'll have more from Coach Kingston coming up for you in just a little bit. South Carolina has completed its basketball roster movement through the portal. Jamari Thomas is the final piece of that puzzle. He has signed his agreement to continue under Lamont Paris. He's a 6-foot point guard from Greensboro. He started his collegiate career at UNC Wilmington, then moved on to Norfolk State, where last season he was the MEAC Player of the Year. He was also the newcomer of the year in the conference, and he was on the conference's all-defensive team. As a junior last year, 16.9 points, 3.8 rebounds, 3.8 assists, and 2.1 steals per game. And Elijah delved more deeply into his numbers. He shoots about 38% from behind the arc. He's an excellent free throw shooter, which you need your one to be. And give us the stat again about where he fits in terms of percentage of free throws for like dudes that are under a certain height.
Oh, yeah, because naturally, when you talk about guys who are really good at drawing fouls, you think of like the Zach Eady's, who like sometimes the only way to guard them is to just, foul the hell out of them, hoping not everyone gets called. But out of the top 25 players in Division I basketball last year, in terms of the fouls drawn per 40-minute stat, 21 of them are taller than, or 6'4" or taller. So only 4 of them are shorter than 6'4", and Jamari Thomas, one of those 4 players, because he is drawing over 6 fouls per 40 minutes. He gets to the line a lot, and when you're making 80% of them, it's a pretty good way to stack up scoring nights. So he's one of the very few small guards in the country who are elite at getting to the free throw line.
Yeah, I think it's a great pickup, and we talked about it. Look, he's not as long as Talon Cooper, but checks a lot of the boxes that Talon checked. But you just, I think a veteran one was going to be crucial. Again, what this does, Elijah, as you and I mentioned earlier, for South Carolina's projections into an expanded SEC, with a very good Texas team coming in, and Oklahoma can play some basketball too. But Arkansas just got better because of Cal, and Alabama may be the preseason number 1. I don't know. You finished 5th last year. If you could do that again, I think that'd be one heck of an achievement for Carolina basketball. Not to say they can't make the tournament, but finishing 5th in this league is going to be difficult for whoever does it. Congratulations, because it's a hard league.
Oh, yeah. Roster-wise, the entire league got better. Vanderbilt got better. Yeah. I think Vanderbilt, with the new coach hire and a lot of the players they've been able to bring on, got better. Georgia's gotten a little better. Missouri, obviously, you're going to get better just by adding anybody, because when you're 0-19 in conference play, the bar's set pretty low, but they added, a 2-year starter who's a small forward at Duke and a point guard at Iowa who was one of the better point guards in the Big Ten. So they instantly got better over at Missouri. The SEC is going to be harder next year, especially with the addition of Texas. Oklahoma, I'll believe it when I see it. They've underachieved the last couple of years with Porter Moser, which has been pretty disappointing, considering how good of a coach he is. Yep. But we'll see. It's going to be a whole lot harder, and you're different going into next year. I'm curious to see if they're going to be better. But I do like the roster, especially if Colin Murray-Boyles can shoot threes a little bit, or if he can, have a jumper that expands more than what we saw last year. It opens the floor for him and Nick Pringle to share the floor together. I think you have a very intriguing team that can be 8, 9, 10 deep potentially going into next year, and that's going to make you hard to play against.
Speaking of basketball, as we continue our integrated media headlines of the day, over the weekend in the NBA, the Timberwolves and Nuggets started the Western Conference semifinals. T-Wolves go to Denver and win 106-99. Former Georgia superstar Anthony Edwards, who is becoming an NBA superstar now, 43 points and 7 boards. The Joker had 32, 8, and 9. That's 9 assists. That's a heck of a stat line, nearly a triple-double for Jokic.
Below his averages.
Still like Denver's 7-game opportunity here, but Edwards is beginning to assert himself as a bona fide star.
He is. Anthony Edwards is a star in this league, but my thing with the Timberwolves, too, because Anthony Edwards is going to get all the love here, and he deserves a lot of it. But this Timberwolves team doesn't beat Denver in Denver if they don't play defensively like they do. Rudy Gobert did an insane job on Nikola Jokic. Yes, Jokic still ended up getting over 30, but it was not an efficient 30 points. He missed a lot of shots near the rim because if Rudy Gobert is not blocking the shot, He's altering it because he is very large and he knows how to use his very large body to make you have to hit really tough shots. He is the best defensive big man the NBA has seen since Ben Wallace. And that is not a lie. You can make a definitive argument. He's the best defensive big we've seen since Ben Wallace won a bajillion Defensive Player of the Year titles.
He was fun
in a row. Rudy Gobert single-handedly made this team from before he showed up, one of the worst defensive teams in the NBA, to being the number one team in defensive efficiency this season. That is why that they have made the jump. Anthony Edwards has been pretty good, and he's getting a whole lot better with his efficiency and decision-making. But the reason they've made this jump to the point where they're going to scare the hell out of Denver in the series, if not beat them, is because they have made a massive leap defensively by getting Rudy Gobert.
And Gobert may not be available in Game 2 because his wife's having a baby.
That's right.
So that could be interesting.
That's important.
We shall see. Yesterday, Cleveland closed out the plucky Orlando Magic.
Young Orlando Magic.
They won a lot of games. Well, I say a lot, but for a team that usually wins 15 games to win 40, whatever it was, 40, I'll go back in, 47 games. That's pretty good. Yeah. But the Cavs win that one in 7, 4-3 tonight in the NBA. We get to revisit one of the old rivalries, the Pacers and the Knicks. The Knicks eliminating the Sixers a couple of days ago. Game 1 is tonight at 7:30, and tonight it's Game 2 of that Minnesota and Denver series in Denver. That one starts at 10 tonight. I shan't be staying up for that one. You will.
Oh, yeah.
So I'll let you tell me how it goes.
It'll at least be on while I'm going to sleep.
Pacers Knicks. I may actually find myself tuning in to some of that. Reggie Miller and Patrick Ewing are not walking through that door.
Nope.
But I still may watch a little bit. Reggie's on the call tonight.
Oh, good.
So there's that.
He should be.
So there's
for
that.
every game. Two young, exciting teams. But I think of the Pacers, it was always not like they're not legit title contenders, nor do I see the Knicks as legit title contenders, but they are a lot of fun. They're a whole lot of fun to watch.
Well, I'm with Halliburton for Indiana. Again, that's going to be America's starting point guard in the Olympics this summer, and I'm big on that. So
rightfully so. He's good. He is that good.
Yeah. He's fun to watch. There you go. Meanwhile, what's not fun to watch is the Atlanta Braves, who have lost 5 of their last 7, 6 of 8, and have fallen 2.5 games behind the Philadelphia bleeping Phillies.
Who are the best team in baseball right now?
Well, they have the best record in baseball.
Yeah. I would say they're the best team right now.
But you don't want to.
I kind of do right now, actually.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Nobody wants to, unless you're a Philly fan.
Nobody wants to in the month of May. See, whoever's the best team in the month of May rarely wins the World Series. So you probably do want to say they're the best team right now because that can change.
All right, that's fair.
That can change.
Phillies have won 5 straight while the Braves have lost 3 straight. The Braves back home tonight against the Boston Red Sox. Actually, I think it's tomorrow night. Yeah, tomorrow night. They have a day off after the long, fruitless West Coast trip where they went 1-5.
A lot of teams do that on their West Coast trip. If I'm a Braves fan, my worry meter is at like 5. It's like the pitching can be better. That's obviously
got to get a couple of those bats going, man. There's 2 or 3 bats that just haven't really
wake up, Austin Riley.
Yeah,
shake them up.
Yeah, Acuna's not really doing his thing either. They need a little, I don't know, a little something.
Yet,
yeah,
I say give it time. I wouldn't be worried just yet.
No, not yet.
You start dropping these series at home.
You start flirting with 500, and I'm starting to get nervous. Right now, you're still 8 games over 500. So
right.
That's okay.
Just goes to show how good of a start they had in the month of April.
Very true. And Kirby Smart got a new deal. We'll have more on this in the drive around, including I have a thought about this. But if you didn't hear, Kirby, a 10-year, $130 million contract to remain at the University of Georgia. He is, as you might imagine now, the highest paid coach in college football for now. I think that's going to remain the thing for a while. But congratulations to Kirby Smart. 10 years, $130 million. All right, that's our Integrated Media headlines of the day, brought to you by Integrated Media. What are you watching? Can you watch it better? Yes, of course you can. Don't you want to? Maybe a great outdoor system this time of year, really all year long in South Carolina. 803-948-8327. No job too big, no job too small. You need him to put that, brand name video doorbell in. I can't say the names. They'll do it for you. You want them to build you a brand new system all over the house? They'll do it for you. Anything in between? Check the box. 803-948-8327. My very good friends at Integrated Media. Sound from Coach Kingston's visit with Elijah and me earlier after the Gamecocks series win at Mizzo, coming at you as the postgame show continues. 20 minutes after 5 o'clock on this Monday afternoon. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Let's jump right into it. Mark Kingston joined us for his regular Monday visit earlier. Elijah has edited a little bit of this, the full interview at 1075thegame.com or on the app. We started by asking Mark about just how long Ethan Petrie's seventh-inning home run seemed to stay in the air.
Yeah, it was like an old Ray Guy punt for the older portion of your crowd that may remember that reference. It was up there a long time, and luckily it landed on the right side of the fence, and so that was obviously a big part of that ball game, and we really took over the game from there.
All right, I want you to be serious with me. How nervous were you and the staff during that eighth-inning weather delay where if it had to be called, it's a tie? Like, how did you know you were going to play again, or was there a big level of concern?
That was a discussion point. There's no question, and it's ironic that you played the Ethan Petrie highlight there, because he's one of the guys sitting near me in the dugout, and he was saying, "Coach, if this storm doesn't go away, we're going to revert back because we had scored and taken the lead at that point, but we're going to revert back, and this is going to be a tie game." And that's the last thing any of us wanted. Is we were playing great and we had taken over, and so it would have really been unfortunate if the storms didn't go away and we would have had to come out of there with a tie. So luckily they didn't, but that was definitely something that was on our minds as well as everything else.
Certainly feels like a close call. And another close call that you had over the weekend, too, was also just so happened to be the number 2 play on SportsCenter's top 10, and that was Austin Brindling robbing Missouri of a grand slam. And I think Garrett Gainey's face said it all after the catch right there. I think I had a very similar look on my face when I saw the play. But looking back on it now and seeing the weekend that, even if Austin didn't have the best week, at the plate, he certainly made a series-defining play out there in the field.
Yeah, and it's great that it was on ESPN because that's great promotion for him and the program. So it's always great to see that, and when you make the mothership's highlights, so that's always good. But he's been a really nice spark for us, and that play he made, that's, you look back now after the game's over, and that's a game changer. The score would have been 7-1 at that point, and I don't know if we would have kept Gainey in the game as long as we did had he given up a grand slam there. But Austin made the play, saved 3 runs, kept the game at 4-1, and then after that, Gainey was dominant. And so it really was a game-changing play and a series-changing play. So Austin's been a great spark for us, and I'm really happy for him.
Talking to Mark Kingston, Gamecocks taking 2 of 3 at Missouri. Friday night, you had good pitching. Saturday, not as much, and some defense that didn't help either. Yesterday, just the one bad inning for Dylan. And I know you were asking postgame, Coach, about your rotation. I'm not going to sit here and ask you, have you and Matt made any decisions on that? But, I said earlier, and I don't know if you agree with me or not, it feels like sometimes these things just pop up in quick flashes for your starting pitchers relative to them just not being consistently ineffective.
Well, in Dylan's defense, Dylan was dealing with a little bit of arm discomfort yesterday. So I think we need to make sure we keep that in context. That was not just a performance where Dylan just didn't get the job done. He was dealing with a little bit of a sore arm yesterday, and that's what I attribute the outing to. I'd say the previous month, Dylan Esky was, if not our best, one of our best pitchers. He shut out Kentucky last week. So I think we need to keep that under consideration, and I'm sure the public wasn't even aware of that until just now. I think he's going to be fine for the weekend, but it's something we're evaluating. And, but the bigger picture is, we've got guys that have had some really high moments and then some not so high moments. And that's the challenge throughout a long baseball season, is to try to make the best decisions on who is trending in the right direction, whose role is best for them. Obviously, Ty Good has been one of our best pitchers as well, if not our best pitcher. And statistics tell us that he's really, really good coming out of the bullpen. Now, what we've done is basically made him a secondary starting pitcher where somebody opens the game and goes as far as they can, but then once Ty comes in, we know he's going to give us starting pitcher length because the stats say coming out of the bullpen, he's just been dominant. And, we have different theories for why that is. My theory is that he's such a unique pitcher that if you have a week to prepare for him on a Friday, then hitters are going to be much more ready for all that he does. But when he comes in out of the bullpen, if you've already prepared for Roman Kimball or whoever opened that game, and now here comes Ty, that's a really tough challenge for hitters. So we're continuing to evaluate everything, where we need to pitch guys, when we need to pitch guys, how much we need to pitch guys. Because some years you have dominant starters. You have a Clark Schmidt, you have a Michael Roth, you know what you're getting. Other years you have guys that are a little bit more challenged, where you've got to fit the pieces together. And I would say this year is one of those years. We've just got to continue to figure out the best way to piece things together, and we will continue to evaluate.
And Coach Cole Messina named SEC Player of the Week for obviously the monster performance he had. 9 for 14, 7 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, home runs galore, a couple stolen bases, and 10 RBI. What does he do for your team whenever he's clicking like that? What does it do for that lineup? Because it produced some really good results this weekend.
Well, if you want to sum it up, when him and Ethan Petrie are really scoring runs and driving in runs and taking great at bats, we basically win. I mean, it's that simple. And because everybody else then can complement them and help do things around them. When they are going well, like they are, we win, period. And because everything else is good enough around them. And then when they get in a little bit of a funk, then, that's when we struggle a little bit to score as many runs as we currently are. But Cole's locked in, Ethan's locked in, and my hope is that they're getting locked in at just the right time. Obviously, as a team, you want to finish strongest at the end of the year, and I think we're trending that way. Our offense as a whole now has been really, really good for about the last 2 weeks, I'd say. And we're averaging, I think, 10, 11 runs a game. So hopefully we're trending at the right time. And when all is said and done, we want to put it together when it matters most.
You got a nice stretch run here with some really good baseball teams. Tennessee's been elevated number one again. I'm not going to take you down and say, hey, scout the Vols for us, Mark. I'm not going to do that to you. But one of the things that Elijah and I opened the show with is maintaining your position right now in order to be a host. And clearly all of you guys have seen that you're projected to host by multiple expert opinions. So there's that. I know you've told us before, you just got to go win the next one, but how much of a part of the conversation does something like that become for these guys in terms of focusing on the goal, or the old cliche of eyes on the prize, or do they do a nice job of not really talking about what that looks like in terms of the opportunity to host at Founders in the tournament?
Well, one of the funniest moments I've had this year, and I shared it with my wife. We were watching one of the post-game press conferences with Ethan Petrie, and the question was asked about quad one wins and how important they are. And Ethan calmly answered the question and then finished with, but I don't really know what quad one means. So I think that kind of tells you how the players look at everything. The players go out to have a next great at bat and have a next great inning. And getting to host is a byproduct of playing games well and winning enough games. So you can't really say, well, if we do this, we'll host, so let's just snap our fingers. That's just not how it works. You've got to go. We've got to try to win the next game. And how do we win the next game? We've got to decide who to pitch and who to play. And is it going to be a game where we steal bases, or are we going to rely on power? Like, those are the decisions and the conversations we have to have, because our job is to win the next game. And if you do that enough, if you stack enough of those, then getting the host happens as a result. And so the hosting stuff, all that's great conversation on the radio. But for a baseball team, we just have to try to make sure we're prepared to win the next game.
Good stuff from Coach Mark Kingston. Again, that was a little bit earlier today. As I said, the entire interview was on our podcast page on the website or the app, 1075thegame.com, or you can get the app at the App Store or the Google Play Store, which, again, sounds like a whole lot of fun.
It's a real thing.
Yep. There you go. Speaking of quad one, we'll come back on the other side with the drive around the SEC, the results from the weekend, and South Carolina's quad one win number went down, but it ain't because of anything Carolina did. We'll give you that and more as the postgame show continues. I'll tell you all about the men's clinic. Dr. Dan Balknight and his crew. You're just not feeling like yourself as you get a little bit older, or at least like you used to. You're wondering why. Don't wait for it to change. Don't think it'll just go away. Instead, go see Dan Balknight and his team at the men's clinic. You'll have a one-on-one consultation. Dan will get to know you, what you do every day, why you may feel the way you feel. And that one-on-one consultation gets to the root of the issue and hopefully gets you back to feeling like you used to. No one-size-fits-all treatments at the men's clinic. And, too often guys just won't, go see the doctor when they're feeling off. They don't want to talk about it. They think they'll just tough it out. Don't do it. Don't be that guy. Get to feeling better when you see Dr. Dan Balknight. They're experts in healthcare for men dedicated to making you feel like you again. 803-875-MENS. Learn more online, too. TheMen'sClinicSC.com.
From the WIS Traffic Studios, I'm Elijah Campbell with a few accidents to get to that are causing some traffic issues on the highways today. We have road construction, actually, on I-20 eastbound between US 601, exit 92, and US 521 near exit 98. That construction has the left lane closed, should be clear here about 30 minutes or so. In Richland County, we have an accident on Highway 1 at Augusta Road at Sparkleberry Lane. Looks like a hit and run has been reported, so traffic moving a little slowly there. We also have one on I-77 southbound over at Fort Jackson Boulevard near exit 10. And in Lexington County, we have a pair of accidents, one on Old Barnwell Road near South Carolina 6, and another one on I-20 eastbound at Bush River Road.
It is Drive Around the SEC time on this Monday. Welcome back in. Jay Phillips, Elijah Campbell with you. Let's talk a little baseball. The Kentucky Wildcats really, I think, solidified, in my opinion, their status as a top 8 national seed, taking 2 of 3 from Arkansas. That gives them 18 conference wins with 6 left to play. Yes, they've got Florida and Vandy coming up. More on Vandy in just a second. But Kentucky takes 2 of 3 from the Hogs. Tennessee takes 2 of 3 from the aforementioned Florida Gators. Mississippi State took 2 of 3 from Alabama. Ole Miss, 2 of 3 from Auburn. LSU took 2 of 3 from A&M. That's a nice series win for LSU, and probably did a lot to make sure LSU goes to the tournament
and breaks the streak.
Yeah, they they'll go. They won't host, but they're in. And I think they were trending that way anyway. Florida's the one that's got to worry.
Well, because now they're flirting with
500.
With 500, and what
I think they're game over.
Sitting,
right? Am I right?
Yeah, 24 and 23.
Yeah, I think they're just a game over. So Florida's in a little bit of trouble. And Georgia, the only sweep of the weekend was Georgia sweeping Vanderbilt. And that gets us, I'll start with the RPI, then get into the D1 rankings. Elijah mentioned this earlier. Now, look, Vandy has a chance to get the RPI right back. But as it stands right now, because of Carolina beating Vanderbilt in Columbia, those games are no longer quad 1 for South Carolina. Vandy is now number 26 in the RPI. And quad 1 in baseball is 1 through 25 at home, 1 through 50 on the road, or neutral, and 1 through 75 on the road. So now South Carolina has 9 quad 1 wins. But of all of the teams, it feels like that would slip out and cause that to be a problem for the Gamecocks, Vanderbilt would not have been the box that I would have checked. Now, again, Vandy can pop right back up into the top 25 of the RPI when they play Kentucky. Need to get a couple of wins, perhaps. But is this the third time Vanderbilt's been swept this year?
South Carolina. That's a good question.
And Georgia. But it wasn't, I felt like there was another one, but I might be wrong. But regardless, they have fallen out of the top 25 of the RPI.
Texas A&M.
Yeah,
Texas
A&M. I thought there were 3. A&M is still the number 1 team in the country in the RPI. Kentucky is 2. Arkansas is 3. Clemson is 4th. Georgia is 5th. Again, Georgia here this weekend. North Carolina is 6th. Florida State 7. Tennessee 8. East Carolina 9. Indiana State is number 10. South Carolina has slipped down to 13, largely because of playing a team that had an RPI in the 90s. Just that's how the math works. But again, with South Carolina having number 8 and number 5 coming up, that'll help the RPI. Bama is 14th. Mississippi State is 18th. Florida is 23rd, despite their record, which is 10 and 14 in conference play, 24 and 23 overall. Ole Miss is 25th, and again, Vanderbilt is 26th. That's the RPI. Now, for those of you who worry about the rankings, maybe you do, maybe you don't. The D1 baseball poll looks like this. If my, again, computer will cooperate, I'll get it for you, I promise. Tennessee is the new number 1 team in the country, as determined by the editors and writers at D1, including Mark Etheridge, Aaron Fitt, Kendall Rogers, and their staff. Clemson is number 2, A&M 3, Kentucky is 4th, Arkansas 5th, East Carolina 6, Oregon State 7, FSU 8, Duke is number 9, Virginia is number 10. North Carolina is 11th, Wake Forest 12, the Gamecocks up 2 spots to 13, Mississippi State up 2 spots. And again, I keep saying this, I've said it for the last 3 weeks. Y'all, Mississippi State is playing some really nice baseball.
They're on fire.
They are playing
right now.
Nice baseball. They are trending in the right direction and at the right time. Georgia is number 15, Irvine 16, Arizona 17, Oklahoma 18, Oklahoma State 19, Indiana State number 20. The final 5 is Troy, Louisiana, NC State, Oregon, and Santa Barbara. 2 SEC schools falling out of the D1 poll with Vanderbilt and Alabama. Utah also fell out of the D1 baseball top 25. So, again, South Carolina, we mentioned it with Mark. You and I talked about it earlier. You look at some of these schools, like Kentucky, I think, has solidified top 8. I think Arkansas and A&M have really done enough as well. Even though A&M lost their series and Arkansas lost their series to Kentucky, you and I were talking that Kentucky might be the one that could potentially here Your point last week was a great one. That, the regression to the mean seemed to be hitting Kentucky. And then with the series loss in Columbia, that popped them a little bit. They may have realized it too,
Yeah.
And now with Vandy and Florida suddenly trending in the wrong direction, Kentucky could be playing for something bigger, man. I mean, the top eight's fine, right? But you might be heading into that, top 1, 2, 3 seed status.
They could. The resume is remarkable, right? Like, they have 17 quad 1 wins. 17. Would you like to guess the number of the team that has the second most?
Well, I don't have it in front of me right this second, but is it Clemson?
It is Clemson with 13.
Yeah.
They have 4 more than the second place team.
Yeah.
4 more, 17-5 in the quad 1. They have 14 true road wins, which really, outside of them and Indiana State, I don't think anybody has more true road wins that's inside the top 25 in the RPI. They've got a really impressive resume. Really impressive. And that, along with the number 5 strength of schedule. Look, I think that's a really good baseball team. I think I still believe they've punched up their weight class a little bit.
Yeah.
Because, if you're asking me to point out who I think the top contenders of winning the national championship are, I might get to 6 teams before I get to Kentucky. But, the resume speaks for itself. And if we're doing resume-based stuff to fill out these tournaments, which you should,
yes,
then Kentucky is clearly a top 3 team in the country.
Yeah, I still I really like what Arkansas and A&M can do on the mound.
That's scary enough.
Yeah.
They both have the one things that they're that good at, like A&M and Arkansas. It's what they are on the mound. Teams like Tennessee and Georgia, it's what they can do with the bats. Clemson can do a little bit of everything too. Teams like that are more well-rounded, or at least have that one dominant aspect of their game scares me.
Right.
That's why Wake Forest would scare me. That's why I would not want any part of playing Wake Forest in a regional, because I know they can throw Chase Burns out there, and good luck touching that 99 to 101 mile per hour fastball.
Yeah.
That's tough. Like that's a trump card. Any team that has that type of card they can play that makes them really hard to beat would scare me. And those are the teams that are usually built to end up winning the whole thing.
And, I don't know how Wake's coaches feel about this. I'm always of the mind, looking ahead here for a little bit because we can do this. When you have that kind of ace, do you make sure that you get into the winner's bracket in game 1, or do you roll some dice and maybe get your number 2 starter in game 1 of a short series? I'm talking tournament now, in the hopes of having that ace either pitch you through where basically you got to get beat twice, or even things up for you. Yeah, I don't know. But I'm with you. Like, sometimes, like, I remember when Carolina under Coach Holbrook lost to Rhode Island. I forget the kid's name, but they had a big ace, and he just came in here that Friday night and he did his job. Now, Carolina ended up advancing to the Super Regional, but they had to do it through the losers bracket. But man, I remember that Friday night, this fan base was ready to burn Columbia down. And I was like, man, they just hang on.
They can't pitch that guy every
he can't
game.
throw again, and I think you're going to be okay. And they were. They won, whatever it was, 4 in a row to advance. But it was hard. I get it.
It'll scare you.
Yeah, that's the nature of the beast in the NCAA baseball tournament, is that one guy might get it done for you. Real quick to conclude the drive around the SEC, Adu Tiro is leaving Kentucky and joining John Calipari at Arkansas. He had chosen North Carolina, Pitt, a few others, but or had him on the list, but has decided to go play for Coach Cal. And Alabama, if I can go back to this, where was the other kid? They got Cliff Omayuri, from Rutgers, one of the better bigs in the Big Ten, and he is now heading down to Tuscaloosa.
Best defensive big in the entire portal.
Yeah. So, again, Alabama, in a lot of people's minds, may be the best team in the country to start the basketball season, at least the number 1 ranked team.
And I won't have a good argument against it.
Yeah. That's the drive around the SEC, brought to you by Herndon Chevy. Save $20,000 on new Silverados. Chevy, together, let's ride. Elijah quizzes me, and we have a cool new bowl game. Both those stories coming up on the Postgame Show. Welcome back into the Postgame Show. Final few minutes on this Tuesday. Gamecock baseball back at it tomorrow night. It's an early start, so we will be actually leaving the airwaves a little bit early tomorrow. Only a little bit, 15 minutes. But a 5:45 airtime, 6 o'clock first pitch tomorrow. And then the Gamecocks have the Bulldogs in town. And that's the Thursday through Saturday this week. They've got a primetime game on Thursday night at 8 o'clock.
That's right. On ESPNU, I believe.
It's still a thing?
It is. As if ESPN family networks aren't all showing college athletics.
I always liked the original concept of the U.
Because usually a lot of it was smaller schools being shown.
Yeah.
You know, it used to always be a big deal when I was like in elementary school, middle school. And I got to watch, my dad's alma mater play on ESPNU once a year when Tennessee Tech would play. They had one ESPNU game a year, usually against Murray State or usually against Austin Peay.
Okay. The goodness.
Yeah, but they were never on. You almost never on TV except for that one ESPNU game a year.
Austin Peay Governors, Murray State Racers, Tennessee Tech, I can't tell you.
I'm so disappointed.
I'm sorry.
They're not the Eagles. They're the Golden Eagles.
Golden Eagles, okay.
Wings up, as they say.
Pat Summit? Tennessee?
No.
Where'd she go to school?
Tennessee Martin.
Martin.
Different OVC school.
Okay.
They're the Skyhawks.
Skyhawks. All right. Well, that's what Hammond is. Huh?
Yeah, see?
I know that one. Well, I didn't know it, but that helps.
You do now.
So you have another quiz for me if you want to delve into the minutia at some point in time here.
I do.
So here we go.
So we did NBA players last week, and I debuted this one with Captain Dave last Friday. And this is real or fake high school sporting event that went down over the weekend. We're going to start in Georgia. The Cairo Syrup Makers versus the Whitewater Wildcats. Is this real or made up?
I don't think Cairo's the Syrup Makers.
Is that your final answer?
Yeah, I'm going to say that's false.
It is true.
They're the Syrup Makers?
They're the Syrup Makers. That's right. The Cairo Syrup Makers is the alma mater of former Major League Baseball outfielder and second baseman Willie Harris. I only really knew him as one of those few players that had the helmets that had both ears covered.
Right.
He was a switch hitter, stole a lot of bases, won the 2005 World Series with the White Sox.
The Syrup Makers.
That's right.
Okay.
It is real. Number 2, in the state of Tennessee, the Macon County Mammoths versus the York Institute Dragons.
Okay, well, the first one was real, so I'm just gonna have to go. I'm gonna go fake.
It is fake, but the Macon County Mammoths are not real. They are the Tigers.
Okay.
The York Institute Dragons are real. Nothing interesting about Macon County, but York Institute is named after World War I hero Alvin C. York and the alma mater of quite literally everyone on my dad's side of the family.
Well, congratulations.
That is in Jamestown, Tennessee.
Okay.
They are the Dragons.
Nice.
So you are 1 for 2. Number 3, in Michigan, the Ypsilanti Yorkies versus the Franklin Patriots.
Hey, let's go real.
That would not be real at all, actually. They are the Ypsilanti Grizzlies. They are in Ypsilanti Township, home of former Memphis Tiger and Eastern Michigan basketball player Imani Bates, who was the number 1 player in the country coming out of high school.
Yeah.
He is now in the Cavs G League system.
Yeah.
In Minnesota, the Blooming Prairie High Awesome Blossoms versus the Loyola Crusaders.
You know what? If it's not fake, it should be. So I'm going to say fake.
No, that's super real. That is very real.
Awesome Blossoms?
Yep, the Blooming Prairie High Awesome Blossoms. Blooming Prairie in Minnesota is most known for their tunnels constructed underneath the city to assist with moonshine peddling during Prohibition.
You need to change your nickname if you're the Awesome Blossoms.
They are the Awesome Blossoms.
Sorry.
Hey, a cool logo, though. They had a very cool logo.
Okay.
And now lastly.
I mean, look, nothing against like flowers or anything like that. You know, I feel like a line of police academy that I can't say right now, but anyway.
Well, now your time to salvage some dignity here. Last one. Okay. In Wisconsin.
Yes. The
Kaukauna Galloping Ghosts versus Fond du Lac Cardinals.
Well, I hope it's real because that just sounds cool. The Galloping Ghost. Wasn't that like a Scooby-Doo episode?
That's a lot of Scooby-Doo episodes.
Let's go real.
And you would be correct.
All
Ending
right.
on a high note, yes. The school apparently earned its name because of a student who presented the game ball dressed as a ghost in the 1940s, and the team nickname stuck, Fond du Lac, not to be confused with Duloc from Shrek, which is what Lord Farquaad ruled over. But it is a real place whose fairgrounds were once used to imprison German POWs from June to August 1944.
Oh, my.
Real place. So 2 for 5.
That's not great. Again, if these are baseball averages, I'm doing fine.
But they ain't.
Yeah, unfortunately.
You've yet to eclipse 50% on one of these.
All right, give me some college mascots next time. Let's see what happens. We'll do it all again tomorrow for you. For Elijah, I'm Jay. See ya.
Jay got a lot of those questions wrong. But to tell you about a company that helped get me right, that is my friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss. Helped me shed a few pounds, not even a really big goal. I wanted to lose 15 to 20 pounds, and Paul Grant, my friends over at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss, helped me do just that. And they did it in a pretty easy manner. Consultations, coaching, going real in-depth with some of the health habits that I haven't necessarily been doing great at. I didn't just lose weight, but I started sleeping better. I started eating a whole lot better. I started documenting more frequently the stuff that I was putting into my body, and the results, they speak for themselves. I shed almost 20 pounds in about a month or so on the program, and you can too. To learn the secret of losing up to 1 pound of unhealthy fat per day and start your own success story, you can call our friends at Columbia Secret for Weight Loss at 803-824-4210 or go to ColumbiaSecretForWeightLoss.com.